I wish I caught the first half. Celeste will share the YouTube link at some point in the chat, and you could always look at the last week's session so that you'd be able to catch up and understand, right? Because I don't want to spend too much time going over what we did last week. But we spoke a lot about triggers. We spoke a lot about negative thoughts, that kind of thing, right? And we identified what is a trigger and how it affects us, how to recognize it, you know, that kind of stuff, right? And where I ended off, let me get right. So I ended off last week talking about breaking the cycles often involves intervention in various stages, right? So listen, ladies, if it was easy to break cycles, none of us would be in them. Because we know, I'm sure every single one of you can identify what is a harmful cycle in your life. I am sure at one point, everybody on this call said to themselves on January 1st, or well, sometime at the end of December, you said to yourself, come this new year, I'm going to stop doing X. And probably halfway through January, you know, you fell back into your old ways, right? Or some of you told yourself, coming down to the end of this year, you know you're in a toxic relationship, and you told yourself, you said, I am not going into 2024 with this man. I am going to break it off with this man, and I'm going to work on myself, and I'm going to get a healthy relationship. And bam, you just was not able to break that, to end that relationship, and you continued in a cycle. So something makes us continue in these harmful cycles, even though we are recognizing it's harmful. I think one of the most common areas that we struggle with, and women especially, I would say, would be weight, right? Ladies, we're being honest, this is a safe space. We talk and we open, right? For the new ladies, please feel free to type in the chat your thoughts while I speak. I may not be able to address questions while the session is going on, but at the end, we have a time where you could unmute your mic and ask questions, and we could chat and, you know, go back and forth, right? But feel free to chat, to respond in the chat while I speak. Lady, listen, some of us struggle with weight and we don't like how we look, and yet we cannot do anything about it. Not that we cannot, sorry. It seems like nothing changes. Like, even though we make up our mind and we say, I am going to lose weight this year, nothing is going to stop me. I'm going to start to eat healthy, you're going to start to exercise. Somehow, maybe we might start off good and then we go back into our old habits, right? Ladies, how many of you all have had struggles with weight? How many of you all have had struggles with weight? Yeah. Procrastination is one as well, right? But how many of you have had issues with your weight and you hate it, you don't like it, you don't want it, you know it's not the best thing for you, right? It's not like you don't know it. You know, no woman, I don't think any woman sits down and says, you know what, I gained 40 pounds. And I like it. I like the fact that I can't button my jeans. I like the fact that all my pants busting because, you know, it can't fit me. I like the fact that I have to go from a size up. I'm happy. I have to go a size or 2 up. I have to buy, you know, going from a size 8 to 10 or 10 to 12 or nobody sits down and says those things, right? But yet, mine not getting shorter because of oh gosh. Right? Nobody sits down and plans to put on weight. And every single woman hates it. But yet we struggle with it. And so something is causing that to happen. The same thing with relationships. Something causes us to stay in cycles. I want that to end, ladies. Right? I want that to end for all of us. I'm not claiming to not be in some sort of destructive cycle. I'm sure in some areas of my life, maybe more than one, I do. But I want to help us to be free from that in 2024 and to be the best possible version of ourselves that we could be, right? And to end this struggle with ourselves. Because when you're in a cycle, you're really fighting yourself. It's you fighting, you know, it's really you. you are the one that need the help, right? Okay, so last week I ended with this, and I'll just go over the first two and go into to the other 3 points, right? What breaking the cycle may involve and the different stages, right? And the first one we said was recognizing triggers. Recognizing what your triggers are. Let's go to the same situation with weight. You may start off on a diet, or let's say start off eating healthy. I don't want to say on a diet. You may have started off exercising, and you feeling proud of yourself and things going good, and something triggers you and you go back to your old ways. You start eating after 6 in the evening or after 7, you just can't help it. You're eating ice cream in the night, you're not exercising again. Something triggers you and you get back into your old cycle. So we need to figure out, recognize the cycles, right? And I said that triggers could be something that you see, hear, smell, touch, and I gave the example of just smelling the cologne of your ex-boyfriend could trigger you. Just smelling that cologne could trigger you into a depression. Triggers are a very powerful thing. So you could think that you were free from that person or that situation, and somebody came and talked to you and they're smelling just like your ex, and that bring up a whole bunch of emotions, and you start feeling the hurt all over again, and you're triggered, you start crying again, to emotional, right? And so we spoke about recognizing triggers. We spoke about number 2, changing negative thought patterns and transforming your mind. And we said how we do that is by the word of God and understanding who God says you are, and having the correct thoughts about yourself. And where we get in those correct thoughts, it's from God, from the Bible. Right? So I think I covered those 2. And number 3, which is what we're gonna start tonight, right, is adopting healthy coping mechanisms. Because as much as, we say we want to be free from triggers, we don't want to be in cycles, and we recognizing what triggers and that kind of thing. I don't think it's possible. I don't know. I don't know if it's possible for somebody to not ever be triggered in their life, right? But it's how you deal with that emotion when it happens. That's the important thing. So you could be triggered and nobody knows, right? If you become self-aware and you understand that, there's a way to cope with this. Okay, this is happening to me. I do feel triggered when okay, I'll give you an example. But it kind of came back to me yesterday because I went to Medical Associates to visit someone, to pray for someone, right? My mom passed away at Medical Associates, right? And I remember for the first, maybe, I lived in St. Joseph. And so I would have to pass Medical Associates every day to get to my home, right? And for the first couple of weeks, when I would pass Medical Associates, I would try not to look in that direction, right? As silly as it may sound to you all, that was my way of not wanting to be triggered, not allowing that memory to come back, right? So I would either do that or pass in the back. You all know it have if anybody who knows Maraca St. Joseph, there's it's not a shortcut, but it's another way to get up inside, right? Where you skip that whole road and you don't have to pass in front Medical Associates, right? But for a while, when I passed in front of the hospital, it triggered certain memories, certain thoughts and memories came back to me. And my way of coping initially was turning the other way, right? Again, it might sound silly, but I'm sure if you sit down and think about some of your coping mechanisms, you'll be like, wait, that's real silly, right? Until eventually time passed and it became easy. Not easy, it became, I guess, with time, even though, yes, every time I do pass the hospital, I'll be honest, I do remember, because those were the last few days and last moments that I spent with my mom. So it's hard not to remember when I pass the hospital, but it no longer triggers me. I no longer have a negative emotion. I was in there yesterday prayed for someone, and I did not at any time have a negative emotion. I was actually speaking to the person who asked me to come and pray for a relative and telling her my mom passed away and whatever. And I had no emotion attached to it, just the memory of it, right? And so, but listen, when it happened, first time I wouldn't listen, you couldn't get me to go inside there for nothing. Let's say the first month or 2 months after she passed, right? And so that's something that triggered me. So it's good to have ways to cope with the triggers, because the alternative for me would be every time I pass in front of the hospital, I bust down crying. So I just take the shortcut, I just pass in the back, right? I'm being honest. If I just allow my emotions to take over and I allow myself to be triggered, I pass, I bust down crying. I wouldn't go, somebody might want me to visit them, I wouldn't go visit them because I don't want to go inside the hospital. So, it's something that I had to deal with internally and eventually get over, right? But we have to find ways. This life will never be without issues, ladies. In 1 Peter 4, it actually says, don't be surprised at fiery trials that you're going through, as if something strange happened to you. And so throughout life, we bounce up situations, trials, circumstances that cause us a lot of emotional pain, sometimes sudden tragedies. Those things, cause later on, emotional strain, and then you're triggered by them. So it's not that we could escape it. I think that would be, it would be, that wouldn't be correct to say that we could get away from it, but we do have to find healthy ways to cope, right? When we are triggered, but everything kind of works together, right? Because if I know what my triggers are, I recognize how it works, how it comes on, and what, the senses that bring them on. When it happens, when it actually comes upon me, I can deal with it better. It's not going to be like a surprise. It's not going to be me talking, having a conversation with you, and you say something that trigger me and I just bust down, rolling on the ground, crying, or you say something that get me so mad and trigger me, like anger, that I cuff you down and you're like, well, what's wrong with you? It's not going to spring up on me like that. It's not going to be like that because I did the work. I know what my triggers are. I know when to expect them. I know when they come on. I know how I react to everything. So that helps me to be able to cope with them better. We know that some people use negative coping mechanisms. I think we spoke about that last week, like marijuana, pornography, eating a pint of ice cream, calling up an ex just because you're lonely. Something trigger you and you call up on maybe not an ex, but somebody who just going to be available just to fill a gap for a time, right? All those things are really unhealthy coping mechanisms, right? So we need to find healthy ways to cope. Number 4, so that was number 3. Number 4, very, very important. I don't know how come this is number 4. Addressing the root cause of the cycle, right? If you don't address the root cause, well, for me, the scenario I gave you, that's easy. It's easy to figure that out. It's not a mystery, right? My mom died there and it was a tragic time for me. So I knew that was why I was triggered, right? No mystery there. But for some of y'all, you are not quite sure what is the root of this thing. Why is it that every time somebody, let's say, criticize, or not even constructive criticism, let's say your boss, every time your boss says to you, okay, this is good, okay, this report was good, but you could have done better in this paragraph, or you could have done better here, or he corrects something that you did. Anytime anybody tries to give you any kind of constructive criticism about anything any work that you did, project, anything like that, you are triggered. You start to go into this negative self-thought. You start thinking, how could I do my best here? How he could say this not good enough? You start going down a cycle now of feeling, maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I'm not educated enough. Why is he criticizing what, and you start going down instead of just saying, okay, you think I should do this better? All right, cool. So something is making you react like that. Anytime anybody criticizes your performance, anything that you think that you did well at and criticize it, you are triggered. And you may not even be aware that that came from a root, that came from something in your childhood, right? And it could be the way your parents rewarded you or didn't reward you for how you did in school or whatever, the way that you may have had siblings who did better than you and you saw them being rewarded. And so they would get they would get an Xbox and you would get a chocolate bar because they get an A and you get a C. And they might make foolish statements like, you need to be more like your sister. She's do so good in school, different things like that, right? So addressing the root cause, my mommy never loved me. My dad left me when I was 5 years old. My last boyfriend cheated on me. I don't think I'm pretty. My parents never showed me love. My family never hugged me. Nobody in my family. I heard somebody say that recently, that hugging was something that they didn't see in their family. Nobody hugged anybody. There was no show of affection. And so that could show up in two different ways in your life. If you grew up in a home like that, you could actually end up craving that so much, craving that affection and that physical touch from someone that you end up looking for it in an unhealthy way. So you want to get a boyfriend quick because you want to feel loved, and your way of feeling love is them cuddling you and kissing you, and you end up having sex with the person. Or it could show up in a way that you just like, okay, this is just how it's supposed to be. Nobody hugged in my home. This is how I am. I don't want anybody to hug me. Leave me alone. And you could take on that side of it as well, right? But what is important, ladies, is that you do the homework for yourself and figure out where some of your triggers could have come from and how it developed and caused you to end up living in a cycle, right? But if you think, if you ask God, if you pray, I'm telling you, He will show you. And I'll tell you too, I remember I traveled some time ago, spent some time by an aunt, my dad's sister, and we got to talking, and she was telling me some things in the past that I never knew about them, growing up with my dad and what her family life was like. Well, and I knew a lot about it, but she was telling me aspects of her family life, their family life, that I never knew. And it made me understand a lot of things about my father, right? Having that conversation with her, and then ultimately me, right? So I started saying, I know I didn't say it to her, but while she was telling me all these things, I started thinking, oh, that's why he would react like this to this. And that's why, and then I started looking at me and how those things that affected him affected me, because he brought it into how he raised his family, and then I became affected by that. And so it's important to ladies to be self-aware, and to know where the root cause of these issues came from, right? Sometimes thinking about these things and concentrating on them too much, it could actually bring you to a place you might say, well, I don't even want to go back down that road. But sometimes you do have to go down that painful road in your mind. You have to remember, you have to go back in order to deal with that root. Pushing it aside, ladies, and saying, I don't want to deal with that, right? Let's say it was abuse. And some of you, you might have been abused and you literally block the memory out of your mind. You don't ever want to talk about it. In fact, some people even go as far as denying that the abuse because they do not want to confront it. They just want to, they want to forget it. They want to forget that part of their life ever happened, and they stick it in a corner and pretend like everything is okay. Now, if you do that and everything is okay, great. But 99% of the time, people who just try to forget it, not deal with it, and they're affected by it throughout their life, especially in relationships, and they don't realize it, right? So we have to be self-aware, and we have to deal with these, the painful memories. Sometimes we have to bring them up and deal with them, right? Deal with the root. If we don't deal with the root, guys, you will always end up in cycles and you'll always be triggered, right? So that's number 4, addressing the root. And number 5, remember we talking about how to stop the cycle, right? And so this one, you might say, well, how this will stop the cycle, but I'll explain. Number 5, which is the last one, and then we're going on to what we're talking about today, right? Never make emotional decisions when in conflict. Don't ever make decisions. Don't ever make serious decisions when you are in that mode of conflict. When something has triggered you, you become angry, you react, you get emotional. Do not make impulsive decisions, because what you would realize, those impulsive decisions actually cause the cycle to become even more cemented, because after you make those impulsive decisions, there are consequences to those decisions that cause you to now end up staying in the cycle, because you have to deal with those consequences. And you know, so you end up back at square one. You're never actually free. And so, as tempting as it is, that I talk to people all the time. It's very, very rare that you would just talk to somebody who is of a level head. Let's say, you know, they're not in a couple, they're not arguing, they're not fighting, everything going good. You know, their relationship is toxic, but at the moment, things going good. Everything seems to be going good, everybody happy. It's very rare that in those moments of calm and clarity that any one of them would say, I want a divorce, right? However, when they're quarreling and cussing each other and they're pelting things and it's a big row home, many times that will come out of their mouth, right? I want a divorce. I don't want to live with you no more. I can't take this no more. I want a divorce. Next week, I'm going to find a lawyer and I'm going to get a divorce, right? Most times when that is said in that kind of scenario, the person actually doesn't mean it. They feel it because they hurt and they're disappointed and they just want to be out of that scenario, but they just say things that they actually don't mean. Some people, because of how toxic that scenario got, they actually do go ahead with the divorce. They do find themselves in a lawyer's office, making a decision that really was made out of emotion, right? And so the worst thing you could do is make decisions at that time when your boss, he irritates you, but you cannot make a decision to just walk out of your job because he come one day and tell you something that just get you real mad, right? You will go home and sit down after and cry because you realize I have no salary to collect at the end of the month, right? And then that's going to put you in a cycle with money, because you have to find money. You're going to get desperate to get a job. You might take a job that you don't like, that would make you end up in the same cycle. You understand? So if you don't, in times of high emotions and anxiety, you do not want to make decisions, right? As tempting as it may be to just blurt out certain things. Hear what the Bible says, right? It says to be anxious for nothing. This is in Philippians. But in everything, by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And the God of peace, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your heart and mind through Christ Jesus, right? So in times of anxiety and bacchanal, and I don't know what to do, and I vex, and I just don't care, you know, when you get sometimes you get so vexed, you don't care. You actually say, I care, I don't care. You just want in that moment to be right. You want to be wrong and you want to be strong. You want to be heard. You want to be the last man standing. You want to win the argument. You don't want to solve the problem. You want to win the argument. You want to get the last say. And so you will do and say anything to come out the victor in that fight, right? Which again, sometimes in those times, the things that are said that you cannot take back. Ladies, those of you who are married and in relationships, or even, you don't even have to be married, even with your family, right? Some of the things that are said when you are angry with people, you don't mean it, right? Or it may have been thoughts going through your mind, but you know they're not your thoughts. You know it's thoughts, maybe the enemy put it in your mind, but you would never say it. You'd always deal with it in your head, right? You'll deal with it here. But when you get really, really, really angry and triggered, we blurt out hurtful, really hurtful, harmful things to the people that we love. And those words, as much as you would say you did not mean it and you wish you could take it back, you cannot. And I'm telling you that those words spoken in those times, as much as you might say it and forget it and say, oh gosh, I wish I didn't say that, the person you said it to, it's not that easy for them to forget that you said that. If you ever got angry, anybody here that has a child, if you ever got so angry with your child that you told your child you don't love them, or let's say your child told you, which children do, and they absolutely do not mean, right? 99% of the time, they're mad about some decision you made or whatever, and they say, I don't love you, I hate you. None of them mean it, right? I have heard of parents who have responded in kind. I hate you too. I don't love you either. Listen, those words spoken to a child, a grown man told me that some time ago, that he told his mother, I hate you. And she said, I hate you too. And he was telling me this in his 30s. And there was still emotion attached to it. As a big man now, he know that his mother didn't hate him. But as a child, it hurt him and it hurt him deep, right? And so be careful, ladies, what you say to your children. Be very, very careful what you say to your spouse, right? You have to, after the argument, you all have to continue to live together. And you don't want to be impulsive and you don't want to now create an even more toxic environment by the things that come out of your mouth in anger, right? And so you don't make decisions either out of haste, right? That just makes things worse. Another thing people do in those times of, high emotions and stuff, or when they're going through real trauma in their life, they do things like go and cut their hair. I heard quite a few women told me that already, that they cut their hair or they change something about them. They got a tattoo or a piercing because they were going through a depression, something happened, and they just wanted something to make them feel better. And so they thought, okay, a change of hairstyle would do it, or a change of, and then they cut their hair and they're like, why did I do this? Why did I cut my hair? Right? Why did I get this tattoo? Right? I think I've spoken to too many people who told me that they got a tattoo because of something that happened to them, a breakup. Somebody died, they broke up with somebody, or somebody died. I saw somebody said they could relate, it's a real thing. Somebody died, they had a breakup, they just under emotional stress and anxiety, and they got a tattoo at that time or a piercing. How they explain it to me, it's like they just something, it's almost like a distraction for them, something to take their mind off of what is happening at the time. And most times people come to regret it. Those things like that they end up doing, when there's trauma, right? So some people spend money, some people eat too much, right? When I was younger, when I feel stressed. Yeah. Like sometimes you bounce up people, listen, as you grow, ladies, as you get older, you get more wisdom. The more people you talk to and the more scenarios you hear about, you realize, whoa, when you're young people are naive and they really don't have as much wisdom, but you could, if you're young and you're listening, you could, but it's just people focus on other things in their life when they're young, right? Most of the times when you bounce up somebody who, let's say, had one hairstyle for a long, long time, having the same hairstyle for a long time is not a bad thing, but it's not necessarily a good thing either. Could be that you're stuck in your ways. But most times when you just see them and out of the blue, they just come and it's just different. They had black hair, it's red, and now it's short. Black long hair, red, and it's short. Bet your bottom dollar it was something that triggered that. And not just that I want to change, some event in their life, right? And so these are things that we have to be aware of and make sure that we are not pushing ourselves further down in the cycle. Because every bad decision you make could actually reinforce the cycle, right? And so we want to be careful of that, right? So we're moving on now to what I want to talk about today. What is the time? Okay, I don't want to go over like last week, right? What I want to talk about today, which ladies is dealing with you. This session now is all about you. And I think what causes people to this is partially why people stay stuck in cycles. And that is because we generally do not like to look at ourselves. We know nobody likes to blame themselves, or it's easier to look outside of ourselves for solutions than to look inside, right? And so I want to talk a bit about codependency and taking responsibility for your life, for the quality of life, for what happens to you. No matter, now there are things that are out of your control, obviously, right? A young woman who gets raped, no matter what she was wearing or where she was, that doesn't give anybody a right to rape her. She could have been making bad choices, yes, in, let's say, being down a dark alley because it's not safe, but that still doesn't say it is her fault that she was raped, right? And there are things that happen to us in our past that we cannot change. You can't do anything about it. But ladies, what you can do is take responsibility for now, for today, for this moment, right? And that's what I want to make sure that we understand. And that is also going to help you to not move forward in cycles and to stop blaming, stop being a victim. Let's say you were a victim in the past. You can't continue living your life as a victim. It's not going to be profitable for you. You're not going to live a fulfilled life. You're not going to live a happy life if you continue to have a victim mentality, right? And so I noticed that this is with people and even myself, ladies, right? That people would come to me and they would be repeating the same destructive patterns over and over and over, right? And I realized that it had more to do with what was actually happening to them outside and more to do with their core beliefs, right? Their core beliefs about themselves and then just generally about life, right? When I think about myself and I'm like, yes, I'm struggling in this area. But when I really think about it, why there's some areas that I might be struggling in that I could change, that I could make a difference, that I would get over quickly. And it's because of what I actually believe my capabilities are in that area. But in other areas, my belief system is off. And so what you believe in at the core in your heart, right, affects the decisions that you make in your life, right? So let me read this. Right. So core beliefs are those beliefs that are so connected to our sense of identity that they affect everything that we do. Right? I'll read that again. Your core beliefs are those beliefs that are so connected to our sense of identity that they affect everything that we do. Right? And ladies, that is so true. Right? Example, I have seen people with just confidence in themselves, like they have confidence. Like, let's say a man who not that good looking. I'm sure a lot of you are bunks of this type of men already, right? They're not all that. They ain't all that. If you be real, they're not all that, right? But they're confident too bad. They have real confidence. They move confident. They talk confident. They're smooth. Nothing stopping them. And they also believe, they're so confident that they believe that I have no woman I can't get if I really put my effort, or if I really find out what she wanted, I have no woman I cannot get. There are men like that. And that confidence actually does get them places, right? In some instances, confidence can help you depending on how you look, right? Forgive me, ladies, right? I talk about some men, no matter how confident they are, it'll be a little struggle, right? But confidence goes a long way in how the kind of people that you think you could meet the kind of people that you think you qualify to date, or the kind of people you think will be interested in you. This is a good example, because if you believe a certain thing about you, if you are insecure about how you look, who you are, everything about you, you would find that you tend to be attracted to a certain type of man. And it would always be actually below your standard. I'm not talking about looks here, right? Maybe looks too, right? But I'm also talking about how that person would treat you and the kind of qualities that that person might have. You are attracted to that. Anyway, let me go on, because I'll get into that later on, right? And we get into that, right? So I think I need to plug this laptop in. 1 second. My laptop almost died on me. Right. So listen to this, right, ladies? Our understanding of the world shapes our beliefs, creating a cycle that repeats, even if it's painful, right? So it's sometimes our understanding of the world is not necessarily reality, right? It's what we experience. It's what we experience growing up. That ends up shaping our beliefs about ourselves. Most times, ladies, it is off, right? And it creates a cycle that repeats, even if it's painful. Example, some men think that all women are bad and vice versa. I have met women who swear all men are really dogs. They do not think. I have met women who looked me in the eye and told me, and they believe it with all their heart, ladies, and they think that I am naive to believe otherwise, that all men cheat in some way or the other. I will never forget our conversation with a woman, mature lady, and she said that I would be naive to believe that my husband did not cheat or will not cheat sometime in the future. And she was dead serious, right? Anybody on this call believe that? That all men cheat somehow, or will cheat, or did cheat, and you just don't know, or all of them, yeah, negative, right? Yeah, well, good. Yeah, I have met women who believe that they're not saying all men are dogs. Not all the same, no, right? But a lot of women do believe that. And why y'all think they believe that? And a lot of men believe that all women bad too, right? All right, so a young lady there said most men cheat with their eyes, right? Somebody say lust. Yeah. That the people who said that, you are saying that based on what you have experienced, on your perception, on what experiences you had in your life, let's say what you heard, but those are not facts. You cannot say, the only way you could say that as a fact is if you met every single man in the world and spoke to them, and that's impossible, right? So we can't make a statement like that, but yet there are people who in their core believe that. And so every relationship that they go into, they are suspicious. They start off the relationship at a disadvantage. They start off the relationship thinking that if a pretty girl pass, they actually take front. So if they're in a restaurant and a pretty woman pass, they stare down their boyfriend to see if he's going to look at the girl when she pass. They're watching his every move. They're looking to see if he's going to break a sweat. They're looking to see if his eyes shift. Because they think, no way he can't look at a pretty woman, right? And as that person said, they all cheat with their eyes. And so you thinking that, so while you sitting down there in the restaurant, as much as you want to just enjoy that time and that moment with that man, your mind is racing. You have all these thoughts going through your mind, right? Is he looking at the other women around here? Does he find I'm really looking attractive? Did he just mean what he really said? Some of y'all, you start off your relationship bad because of your past experiences. You never enjoy the actual moments you are with that person. You are so in your head trying to analyze what they say and what they do that you can't just take the person for who they are, enjoy their company, and get to know them, right? It's insecurity, but it's a real thing that women struggle with, and men, right? But more so people who have had bad experiences, in the past, right? So men think women bad, women think men bad. Some people think that love is just that love not even real, right? And some people go as far, ladies, as to think that God doesn't love them and not unconditionally. I think I've even asked this question on this call already. I've asked how many people believe that God loved them unconditionally. And some people have said no. And what that means is, do you believe that no matter what you do, no matter what you say, no matter how bad, how much sin you commit, how much good, bad, whatever, that God loves you the same? And a lot of people, I think I asked the question, maybe I could ask it again. How many women think that God loves them like that, unconditionally? And a lot of people said no, they don't believe that. They believe that He loves them, yes, but not unconditionally. That it's hard for them to believe that. And again, that comes from your upbringing, and it's a perception, it's a core belief that came from your upbringing, because your relationship with your parents was really performance based. You only felt loved when you did something that caused them to be proud of you. That's the only time you felt loved. That's the only time you felt seen. That's the only time you'd hear your parents, let's say, talking to your neighbor about you. Hey, my girl get an A plus this term. She bright, you know. But then when you don't perform, or let's say you get a C the next term, they actually say negative things about you, and you know, you wonder if this is the same parent who was boasting about you last term when you got an A. And so you only felt love when you performed for your parents and you got some sort of reward and they would speak fondly of you. But other than that, you felt invisible. You always felt you had to be performing to get your parents or keep your parents' love. And that's a dangerous way to grow up. That could hinder you, that could cause you to really have toxic way of in relationships. And even when you go to work, it affects the way you relate with your co-workers, because somebody like that would find themselves being so competitive that they're willing to cut somebody up. I don't mean literally, right? You know what I mean? Like sabotage somebody to be on top, to look better, even to go as far as to lying or whatever it takes. You want to be on top because you want to get the praise from your boss. You want to be the one to come out as the model employee. You want to be the one that the boss, you know, and you do whatever it takes. And so ladies, a lot of the perceptions, a lot of what you think is your normal train of thought, a lot of what you think, well, this is just me, and a lot of what you think is right is actually you having a really distorted perception of yourself that came from your childhood, or let's say came from a previous marriage, and it formed core beliefs that are now affecting your life and causing you to be in negative cycles, right? Yeah, so all right, so I'll read this, right? So these wrong conclusions arise from inaccurate perceptions based on repeated events. So even though these events result from our own beliefs, they reinforce the faulty ideas that started the cycle in the first place, right? So because you always come to the wrong conclusion or you have the wrong perception, you make the same mistakes with people, you make the same assumptions, you make the same judgments, you end up getting the same reaction from them. And it kind of reinforces, you think their reaction to your wrong conclusion reinforces your wrong perception. I hope I didn't send you all mad with that. I hope you all understand what I'm saying there, right? So that's how a cycle continues, right? You're wrong and strong. I'll say it in Trini terms. You're wrong and strong, right? And you always feel you're right. And so you would speak to people in a certain way, or tell them certain things, and you get the same reaction from them, right? You get people telling you the same things, doing you the same things because of how you relating to them. But you see that now as you being right. You see I was right about them, right? And you continue. So it actually reinforces your wrong thinking and your wrong perceptions, right? And you end up with all your relationships having the same types of issues. You end up hearing people saying the same things about you all the time. That is something, ladies, listen, when did I discover that I was rough? That I was a little on the rough side. I'm trying to remember what age I discovered that. And I'll tell you how I discovered it too. It wasn't me sitting down and doing introspection and saying, I might be a little rough. I may be a little rough. Maybe I could be a little more gentle, and looking at how I would relate to people. I realized that I had like a rough manner in dealing with people and things, not only with people, how I might, you might pick up I don't have nothing to pick up and show you. You might have a glasses here, right? You might pass the glasses to me like this, right? That's your way. I might pass the glasses so. And listen, I'm not even aware that I did it so fast, that I did it so rough. It is just my manner, right? That's what we say. You find me, right? It is only probably, when did I discover? I don't know. I can't say, but the more people started telling me that, when you have close friends, right? Sometimes, not sometimes, all the time, when you have good close friends who could tell you the truth, it is great. So when I started noticing more and more people would say, oh gosh, you're rough, eh? You're rough, eh? Why you had to be so rough? Why you had to be? The more I started hearing that, that's when I started thinking. I was like, maybe it has some truth in this rough thing that people say, and maybe they're right. Maybe I am rough, right? And so sometimes, not everybody, you can't take everybody advice, but the people who are close to you and are always around you, you find them saying the same things to you all the time. Why are you so sensitive? Why are you so moody? How are you always so moody? Or why are you always so emotional? Or why, take heed when the people who are closest to you, the people who you know really care about you, right? When you get married, ladies, marriage is like a mirror. The Bible say, the word of God is like a mirror, marriage too. I discovered a lot about me when I got married, because I had this other individual now stuck to me, living with me, right, 24/7, who was able to see my flaws, to see the deepest parts of me, and was able to point it out to me. So things that I didn't even know were issues, when you get married, they pop up, right? You'd find your partner hopefully your partner would be honest enough to tell you the truth about yourself. And that's something my husband used to tell me that even when we were dating, that I was rough, right? And so, but I probably wouldn't necessarily take him on then. But the more people started telling me, I'd be like, okay, maybe I need to work on that for true, right? Still working on it. So take heed of those things, people, right? Even as I'm speaking, think about the things that people keep telling you about yourself. Are they positive things? I'm not talking about somebody who's telling you, oh gosh, you're so friendly and you're always smiling. And no, I'm talking about the negative things that people keep bringing up about you. And everywhere you go, you're working with people, you get close to them, you realize they would all say the same thing about you. People the thing that they might be saying is, why are you so quiet? You're so quiet. You don't talk to anybody. You're so quiet. You might think that's a good thing, but it's not. Why are you so quiet? Why is it so difficult for you to communicate? Why is it so difficult for you to form meaningful relationships with people? Why do you prefer to disappear and go to the back of the crowd or back of the class, or you never want to be seen? That's not a good characteristic. That's not a good thing. And so even that, if that's what people tell you, that's a common thing people tell you, you need to start thinking and becoming self-aware, right? Because those things could be coming from a core belief that you have that is wrong, that does not come from a right place, right? Yes, so let me continue reading. Okay. I can't control these events sometimes, however, the consistent factor in every problem, right? So the consistent factor in every problem, ladies, that you have is you, especially those problems that you always have, right? If all of your relationships end the same way and you end up with the same type of man, the problem is not all the men, ladies. It is you. If you had 5 relationships in the last 10 years and all of them were the same, all of them ended the same way, all of them had the same sort of toxic traits and stuff, the problem is not the 5 men, it is you. And let's say the men, I'm not saying the men didn't have issues. You choosing a type of man. You are the one that's being drawn to these men somehow, right? And we'll get to that just now. And so you are the common factor in all of your problems in your life. You cannot look to someone else to solve, to look for the solution. It has to be you. You are the common factor. In every situation, you are present. The belief, right? Listen to this, ladies. The belief that the problem lies outside of yourself is codependency. I will get back to that question at the end and answer it, right? It went too fast. I didn't see it, right? Yeah. So in every situation, the person is, you are present. The belief that the problem lies outside of you is codependency, right? Regardless of change of location, ladies, regardless of the change of jobs, regardless of you say, well, I'm done with these friends, if the same problems persist, you have to start looking at yourself. It could never be everybody else. If everywhere you go, it's the same narrative. This person, this person is rude. If everybody's saying you're rude, or you're always out of time, or you're always doing this, or if there's a common everybody, you have to look at yourself. We can't continue blaming everybody else for our issues in life. And so you really have to take note of these things, right? This is what codependency is in essence, right? The problem is outside of me. I am not responsible. I am not responsible for this. It's their fault. They need to fix it. When they apologize, it will get better. If they come to me, then I will. It's always outside of you. You're always looking to the other person, right? To solve the issue per se. There's another side of codependency that we will get to, right? Certain beliefs. Okay, right. So there's certain tendencies in people, certain beliefs, needs, characteristics that they have that keep attracting them to a certain type of person, right? We've somehow, and I'm including myself, become skilled at subconsciously recognizing familiar traits in people. Our minds naturally seek the familiar, right? And there's a twist to that, right? The root of every negative thought and feeling or behavior is fear, right? I'll read this over. As humans, we are wired to actually resist things that make us afraid. We are wired to naturally run from fear, to avoid fear, right? The unknown feels like a threat to people who are stuck in a cycle and are very stuck in their ways. Stepping out of themselves is actually a fearful thing. So you actually shy away from the things that could break the cycle, and we are actually drawn to the things that keep us in the familiar, right? So let me read the part about fear again. Yeah. Right. So, right, I'm going to read this over because it's important, right? We have become skilled at subconsciously recognizing familiar traits in people, traits that we are like attracted to, right? Our minds naturally seek that which is familiar, right? And the root of every negative thought, feeling, or behavior is fear. And as human beings, we are wired to resist fear, to run from fear. We don't want anything to do with fear. And the unknown is it feels like a threat. right? It feels like a threat sometimes when people tell you you have to change certain ways about you, certain behaviors. And we actually shy away from the things that would actually break the cycles from our life. And we are drawn to the things that keep us in the familiar, that keep us in the cycle, right? Um, Somebody who is trying to lose weight and they have a poor diet, right? Their diet, the food that they eat, they enjoy, right? They eat that way because they enjoy what they eat. It's the familiar. They cook a certain way, they eat a certain way. They love it. They love food, right? The thought of eating healthy is scary for them, right? I don't know, ladies, I don't know what I could relate, right? The very thought of eating healthy and stopping the negative lifestyle, the negative way of eating, the unhealthy way of eating, the thought of stopping that and eating healthier foods is actually a fearful thing. We would rather stick to what we know and eat what is more comfortable for us because it's a fearful thing to think that I can no longer. This is now to recognize what I have been doing all these years. The fact that I have been cooking macaroni pie and potato salad and rice together on one plate and eating it, right? You love it, you enjoy it. It's the Caribbean way. But to say, well, okay, to go from, let's say you go to a class and some health coach or whatever YouTube tells you that the majority of your plate is supposed to be vegetables and then a quarter of this and a little bit of that. And that is scary for you. The thought of that is scary. What are you talking about vegetables? Why you said that V word? Like the V word is a cuss word. We know about the F word. You probably didn't know it had a V word to vegetables, right? And so here's somebody now trying to help you, and they're telling you that your plate should consist of mostly vegetables and then maybe some beans, a piece of meat, and some small, a little bit of carbs, right? And you can't fathom that, it's, right? But here the sad thing about it, ladies, right? You have been doing your thing for, let's say, 25 years, you're 25, 30 years with the same result. You're overweight, right? And even though you don't like it, yeah, even though you don't like it, you don't like being overweight, and you know what the correct thing to do you are so fearful about making that lifestyle change and eating healthy. The reason why you cannot do it, why it is so difficult, ladies, because at your core, you enjoy eating the unhealthy foods. There's something scary to you about stepping out and eating more vegetables, even though you've never really given it a try properly. You might just do it for one day and, you know, and so the thing that is going to give you the greatest result and actually change your life and help you to break the cycle, which is changing your entire diet and lifestyle, is the thing that you refuse to do. You prefer to stick in your old patterns that have never been able to give you proper results than to step out of your comfort zone, right? And adopt a more healthy lifestyle. And so, I mean, that's just one example, but in many other areas of our lives, we do that same thing. We know that something is having a harmful effect on us, but because we are so comfortable with our way and so fearful of stepping into that unknown, right, that we rather stay and actually reap the consequences of the harmful things that we are doing to ourselves. It is too common, ladies. Too many of us do it, and it is time to stop, right? Because you're not experiencing a full, happy, satisfied life if you are stuck in negative cycles. And you have to confront your fear in whatever area it is. You have to just confront that and say, no, I'm not giving into this fear. And as somebody just said, fear is one of the major tools that Satan uses to keep us where we are, to keep us stuck where we are, to keep us in negative cycles in our lives, right? Um, okay. What is the time? Right. So what do we do, ladies? What do we do? How am I not codependent? Now, the other part about codependency too, which is as harmful. We're talking about negative things. This is negative too, but we don't see it that way, right? Most relationships, romantic relationships, are codependent relationships. How that looks is I scratch your back, you scratch my back, right? You love me, I love you. As long as I feel loved, I will love, right? That's the I scratch your back, you scratch my back thing, right? If you do what you're supposed to do as a man, I will do what I'm supposed to do as a woman. That is codependency, right? So long as I like to get my feet rubbed. If you rub my feet, you like to get your back massage, I will massage your back, right? So that might seem and sound logical to you because you're saying, well, yes, two people, it can't just be me giving all the time, right? As much as that sounds like a logical thing to you, it is codependence. And I'll ask you this question, right? If somebody in your relationship, in your life, your boyfriend, it can even be a parent, a sibling, whoever, husband, right? Stops doing something that you like or you want them to do, that let's say you consider love or that makes you feel special. And because of that, you stop doing for them because your thinking is, I don't want to give more than I'm receiving. Would you all consider that love on your part? Just think about it. Is that love? Is that thinking coming from a place of unconditional love? Answer me in the comments. I'd like to know what you all think. Is that what love is? Please let me know. I'm waiting to see some of you all type. So I'm not giving what I really want to you in terms of love because you're not giving me certain things that I feel that I want in this relationship. So I'm holding back, basically. Right? Right. Definitely not love. No. Yeah. Yeah. Spite. Well, I wouldn't even go as far as to call it spite. Some people actually think that is that's how it's supposed to be, right? Yeah, and they say it, they actually boast about it. I ask him to do XYZ for me and he don't do it, right? I ask him to clean the bathroom for me, he never does it. I ask him to cut the grass for me, he never does it. I ask him to wash the waist for me, he never does it. So I'm not doing XYZ, right? And they feel, well, that is what, yeah. And they feel, well, that is me trying to get him to do what I want him to do. So I hold him back. I'm not giving my all. I don't want to give my all until he gives me his all. That is not love. That is actually very toxic. That is called codependency. Another aspect of it in a romantic relationship, how it shows up. If you are not feeling loved from your parents, your husband, your boyfriend, whoever, right? Your best friend. If you don't feel love from them, you cannot, it puts you in a place now where you feel lack. So you feel less than. So my husband, I've been married, let's say you're married 10 years, and 5 of those 10 years, your husband was good to you and you felt loved, right? But something happened, and in the 6th year or 7th year, circumstances change. Not that he don't love you, but you're no longer feeling love, right? And without that feeling of love, you are in a frenzy. And what you try to do now is control him to get him to love you, right? But you of yourself, it puts you in a place now. This is where some women, I've heard it many times, right? I want to get a divorce. I no longer feel loved in this marriage. Ladies, be honest with me. Remember, nobody judging nobody here. What you all think about that statement? Is that a legitimate reason to get divorced? I want to hear your opinion. I really do. Priya says selfish, right? I no longer feel loved, so I'm married 10 years. I had 5 good years where I felt loved, not saying perfect, right? But something happened in the 6th year, something changed, and I'm no longer feeling the same love. It feel like I have to fight for love. It feel like I'm fighting for his attention. It feel like I'm fighting for his time, right? I'm not saying the man cheating on you or anything, eh? I'm not saying the man cheating on you, right? Something changed, right? Does that give us as women a right to want to get divorced because you no longer feel loved? I want answers. Somebody typed something there, but I didn't see what it was. Let me hear you all. If the communication is so broken, you can't talk, you don't change certain things, then yes, okay. So you would throw away the 5 good years because you're not feeling loved in the 6th year and there's no communication and it's broken. That's what you're basically saying. Anybody else willing to state your piece? What do you think? Is that a legitimate reason? What if her love language this love language comes up? This love language, right? I like it. I like it. Love languages causes a lot of divorce, actually. As much as it is a legit thing, it causes divorce. Let me see, what else? Let me hear y'all. I'm no longer feeling loved. Is that, okay, you are a counselor. You are a counselor. You are a marriage counselor. And a lady comes into your office crying, tears down to the ground, crying a river. And she said, I don't feel loved in this marriage. I'm invisible. I want a divorce. Is that a legitimate reason to get divorced? This is why I'm distraught. He's not my husband anymore. Basically, the person. No, all you're adding. I never say nobody communicate nothing. I'm saying how you feel, right? So you're extending the scenario. I'm saying you feel a certain way, right? Right? Okay. So this is how you feeling because whatever happened, all right, I'll give all you a scenario. He lost his job. So he depressed. He not depressed as in lying down in bed depressed, but he changed. That affect his manhood and how he feel about himself. He no longer feel valued. He no longer feel valued in a relationship. He feel like he's a failure. And so because of how he feels about himself, right? It sort of just changed his way of interacting with you. So you're not getting that same, it's not the same person. He different. Because you're going through right? You don't know that, right? He never tell you that, but I'm telling you, this is the problem, right? He lost his job and it just really have him down. And so he's going through a rough period. And so coming home and rubbing your foot, he don't like the idea of rubbing your foot. What he home? Long time it used to be when he come home, you give him a massage, then he rub your foot. Now he just home waiting to rub your foot. That's his job. He don't like that. It have him feeling a little, low in confidence and value and so on, right? So he's not treating you the same way, and you really feel distraught about it. You feel hurt. You're not being as affectionate, all kind of different things. Is it that you're to divorce that person, right? So I'm sure everybody would have different opinions, and everybody, no, we talk about it in the end. You don't know, but remember, you're not getting love and you're not feeling love, right? But the fact of the matter is, ladies, that if those are your thoughts, if that's how you are thinking, that's not love. Who you really love in that relationship is you. You love you. And you want to make sure that you feel a certain way. You want to make sure that you are satisfied in this relationship, right? The love is really you loving you. So many women have come to me and said that their husband not doing this, he not doing that, he used to do this, he used to blah, 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 blah. And I listen to them talk and I realize, wait now, this person is really deserve the love. And so it's really what about I am getting out of this relationship. And so from the time something changes and the person no longer able to give them what they think they need, that's it for them, right? And so I stayed too long on that, and there were a lot of things I didn't say. But here what I wanna get to. I have to get to this. I'm skipping plenty. But here what I want to get to help you all with this, right? And it will help you in all aspects of life too. Let me tell you. One second. Extension. Right. Okay, so here's this. Here's the big picture with this thing, ladies, right? The problem is really what is our source of love, or who is our source of love? Where's my biggest source of love and contentment coming from, right? If your biggest source of love, if you feel your biggest source of love should come from your husband, you're going to be constantly disappointed in your marriage, because only the married ladies on this call would be able to relate and agree that not throughout your entire marriage you do not feel loved. It doesn't mean the person doesn't love you. I'm saying you don't always feel it. Sometimes the person, and even you, think about you ladies, you are not, depending on where you are in your life, what is happening, you are not, or you don't always feel that capacity or capability of showing love in a particular way that the person might want that love from you. But that's because of where you are at, not because you don't love the person, right? And so if my source is my husband, or my source is my mother, or my source of love is my father, that I feel lost, I feel broken without the love of any human being, I am in trouble. Even your children, right? I spoke about this briefly last week. If you have children and you think that, well, of course my child will always love me, I know I could get love there. Sometimes they would hurt you too and do hurtful things, and they would make you would not feel loved by them. And that could be something that could make you very distraught and miserable, thinking that maybe a child will love you, right? Ladies, our ultimate source of love has to come from God, our creator. And I am not saying this just, I'm not saying fancy words that I think you need to hear, right? If you have not come to the place in your life, ladies, where God's love is enough to sustain you through a period of your life where you don't feel that you are receiving love from somebody who's supposed to love you, then you don't have a real intimate relationship with God. I can safely say that, because the love of God inside of you is so powerful that it will be able to sustain you through periods of your life where you do not feel loved, where not only you don't feel loved, you might feel hurt by something that your significant other might be doing, or your mother or your father. I remember asking a young woman years ago, I was praying for her, talking to her, I can't remember the scenario, and she was desperate. She was in her 20s, never felt that her mother loved her, and desperate for her mother's love, right? She was like, I just, it seems like I can never do anything good enough for her. And she was like, that was like her, I don't want to say her life's mission, but a big part of her was just wanting that approval from her mother and wanting at some point to feel unconditional love from her mother. She never felt it. She always felt her mother didn't love her. And I asked her the question, I said, can I ask you something? Right? Because the person was a believer and had a relationship with God. I said, if your mother really doesn't love you and never loves you, where does that leave you? What is that going to do to you? Will you continue throughout your life trying and searching and getting hurt over and over, trying to get your mom's approval and not getting it? So I asked her, will there ever be a time where you stop looking for that love from her and just give love because you love her? And so that's not going to stop you. She not loving you shouldn't stop you from loving her, because that's your mother, right? I said, and I told her something too. I said, if you stop on this endless quest for an approval for your mom's love and stop doing the things that you're doing to try and get her approval and then just getting hurt. And you just love her conditionally. I said, that might be able to probably make a little headway in her heart because she's seeing your love for her, your unconditional love for her. It could do something. Maybe she really doesn't love you, maybe, and that could open up her heart. And, and so I realized that at that point, well, throughout my time as a pastor and counseling people, that sometimes people are desperately seeking love and approval from certain individuals in their life, not from everybody, but, their husband, their boyfriend, mother, whatever the case may be. And nothing is wrong with wanting to be loved by these people. The problem is when you don't get it, what it does to you as an individual, what it causes you to do, how it causes you to behave, right? And depending on how it causes you to behave, you'll realize that you are really in a codependent relationship. And sometimes it would even get you to realize that, wait, now maybe I don't really love this person. It's just, I just want this approval. I want to feel a certain way. I want to feel affirmed by this person, right? And so it's more, it ends up becoming more about you and what you need to get from this person. And at no time are you willing to just let it go and say, you know what, I will love in spite of. And some people never see the results of that decision because they're just not willing to do it. I've told people that already, and they say it's an unfair thing to say. Basically, they say it's unfair. Why should I love if I'm not being loved? Man, that statement in itself it shows me that it's not love, right? And so they think it's unfair. I'm in a marriage, I should be loved. They never give themselves a fighting chance to show that person unconditional love and see what it would do to their heart. Because in a marriage, I'm using marriage because it's the easiest example, right? But it could be in different scenarios too, right? A young lady gave a testimony last week about she and her mother during Christmas time and how something was broken this year by her making a simple decision, right? But in a marriage, sometimes things and situations in the past causes your heart to be hard. It hurts, you build up walls. And if somebody's just not willing to love people through those walls, to continue to love, to continue to make sacrifices for them, and to give it time to see, well, what my love will do for this person. Now, it could be possible that your spouse or your mother or your father, as I said, don't love you. And you can't force anybody to love you. Excuse me. And if somebody, they can reach to the point where they want out. I'm not saying that you refuse. That's like what you're gonna do? Hold them hostage to love you. If somebody say, well, yeah, what? Your spouse say, yeah, what? I ain't feeling this thing no more, whatever. If they want to go, you let them go, right? You can't force somebody to love you. If they no longer want to try, as somebody said, if they don't want to get help, if you realize you can't do it on your own and you say, here, what, let's go to a counselor, let's seek some advice from somebody, and the person not even willing to try anything, it could be that the person did reach a stage where I'm done with this marriage. I don't even want to try. And I'm not saying in a situation like that you should stay. The person want out, they want out. But if it is that the person just not in a position to give what you're looking for, and it may be just a matter of time, or maybe a matter of you changing maybe making an adjustment, then, I think as somebody who claims to love, you should be able to give love without receiving it. And I mean, it's easy to prove to you all that you all could do it, because if you think about your children, you realize that you're able to love your children like that. Nobody put their children out and say, I don't love you. Don't tell your 5-year-old, look, one live by your auntie, you're behaving too bad. They don't listen to you. They throw in tantrums. They nothing you tell them to do, they're doing, right? They're real misbehaving, right? But that don't stop you from loving them. That don't stop you from making food for them. It don't stop you from washing their clothes. It don't stop you from making up their bed. It don't stop you from sending them to school. Am I right, ladies? It don't stop you from still trying to hug them up. It don't stop you from talking to them and telling them, you need to do better. You need to, you can't be throwing a tantrum. You try because you love your children. Most people love their children unconditionally, right? But somehow when it comes to a spouse, we can't show them that kind of unconditional love. We can't. We must get something in return, right? So back to the problem is the source, our source of love, and it has to be God. Ladies, in reality, listen to this. In reality, codependency is when we depend on anyone to do for us what only God Himself can do for you, right? People around us can contribute to that love, can contribute to our freedom, they could be a part of our lives and contribute. But in terms of a source, the main source, God, there's certain things that only God could do, certain voids only God could fill in your life, right? And so anytime, a good example of this, and I'll go to questions now. When Jesus met the woman by the well, he went straight to the root cause of her problem. He small talked with her in the beginning, and then he went straight to the root. He asked her, where's her husband? He knew that the root of her problem was that she was looking for love. She felt unsatisfied, she felt empty, and she thought she could be filled by going from husband to husband to husband, and then the man she was with wasn't even her husband. She thought that was what would sustain her and give her that feeling of love she was looking for, until she met Jesus, and he went straight to the heart of the matter. He didn't even play games. He's like, where's your husband? Right? And that just opened the door to her being honest with him. And then he told her, if you drink from my well, you would be satisfied. It will end your quest for that kind of love, and you'll know that you can find that love in me, right? And you could stop going from man to man, right? And so that's a powerful scripture. And if we look at our lives, I'm sure you could identify areas of your life where you keep trying to draw from the things of this world to satisfy, and you realize it cannot. That no amount of parties could do it. None. No amount of alcohol could do it. No amount of weed could do it. No amount of man could do it. If you have that void, if you are looking for that love and you're looking to feel whole and complete, you could only get that through God, through Christ. And so, ladies, I want to open up for you to ask questions. I saw two questions that people were typing, Celeste, and it was